if you asked me 3 years ago, what are our core values, our company core values? I had a card in my pocket and I would say, well, let me tell you. And no, actually, let me back up. I'll tell you a story. So I was interviewing one of our clients. Well, I say it was an interview. I was trying to sell him into our fractional program. And I'm in LA. We're sitting in the FBO. He didn't even want to look at the airplane. He's like, Cory, I want to know who you are. I want to know about your company because I'm trusting my family with you, trusting my business with you, and my money with you. So the airplane, I'm sure that's great, but let's talk about you. So he asked me what my core values were on the company. And I pulled out my little cardboard deal and he's like, no, stop. He's like, you're the CEO and founder of this company, Cory, and you can't even tell me your core values. And if they're more than 4 or 5, they're full of shit. They're not real core values. And that it really hit me. And I was like, you know what? He's 100% right. And I joke about it that was like the hardest interview I went through. It was like I was going into Mike Tyson. And halfway through, he's like, Cory, do you even want to continue this conversation? I told him, I want to. I am learning so much and I'm actually looking at my business. And he owns many different businesses and ultra successful. But I walked out of that meeting and I was like, you know what? I've got to make some changes here.
Welcome to Growth Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we look at company core values. We've had a lot of conversations about it, but this one really goes into recasting core values, meaning you had core values that you needed to relook at and you needed to make sure there was a new alignment with everyone in the organization and live by those core values. So recasting core values is today's conversation with our special guest, Cory Bengtzen. He's the CEO of SkyShare. They are a fractional jet company. They do some brokering. They do probably a lot of things as it relates to jets. But we have a great conversation about what does it take to make the Inc. list 3 years running. And in fact, we know it gets harder and harder because sales, as they grow, the numbers just make it harder for you to make the list. But it is possible to keep that level of growth. Well, he pointed back to a moment in his business where he calls it recasting the core values. And so recasting your company values is a process of just redefining who you are as an organization and how you're going to live by them. And all of the details that go into that, we unpack in today's episode with Cory. What I really love about this interview is there's some examples that you can take away and apply into your business and just ask yourself, where could we do a better job in this area? And each of the things that we talk about are probably opportunities for improvement, if you will. My name is Gene Hammett. I work with leaders. I work with their companies to help them grow. We do that by creating a new evolution of leadership. What I find is a lot of CEOs are really busy and they get busy and they're not sure how to get out of that cycle of busyness. And they need to lead more. They need to coach more. They need to spend more time with their people to develop them, but they don't have the time. And so that cycle continues to go on. And then the business continues to grow because most of the clients we work with are on the Inc. 5000 and they're growing. It creates chaos and challenges. And it just means there's more pull on the time of those leaders. So if you can relate to this, one of the things I would ask you to do is to go through the leadership effectiveness evaluation. It's a tool we use with our clients. We're bringing it forward, offering it for free if you're listening on this podcast. Normally it'd be $1,000, but want to make sure you get a benefit from listening to the show. And we will walk you through this, a customized approach, 7 dials of leadership. Look at where you are. Look at what your opportunities for improvement are and really discuss those and build a game plan, prioritize the things. You can't just exist on doing the same thing you've always done. You've got to really be intentional about this. And this is a tool that we use our clients to get really intentional about their leadership and their core capabilities for growth over time. It's called the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Mention that you got it on the podcast, and it's absolutely free. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now here's the interview with Cory. Cory, how are you?
Doing great. How are you, Gene? Thanks for having me on.
I am absolutely fantastic. We're going to have a great conversation about team building and hard work and how do you create that kind of alignment. Tell us about your company, SkyShare.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I founded SkyShare 14 years ago, and we're in the private jet space. We pretty much do everything within that space. So the heart of the company is our fractional program, where it's almost like a timeshare. You buy a fraction of one aircraft, and then you have guaranteed availability on the fleet from our Gulfstreams down to the Pilatus. And then we also do aircraft sales, management, charter, and own a couple FBOs. And I'm a pilot myself, so I love what I do. I get to play with airplanes and talk to awesome people every day like you.
I've got a client of mine I need to introduce you to. He wants to buy a plane here soon.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm curious. Air travel has changed over the years, and COVID certainly probably saw a spike in what you guys were doing, because there were people that still needed to move from A to B, and they needed to do it in safely and not be surrounded around much others. But over the next 3 years, do you see that a change in the way people use fractional aircraft and private planes?
Yeah, good question. And kind of going backwards, COVID was such an interesting time for us. So it's a privately held company, and we don't have any outside investment, no VC or PE money. And so we bootstrapped this the whole way up. And when COVID hit, like, honestly, Gene, I didn't know if we were going to make it. I mean, we had all of our pilots, our goal was to not let any full-time people go. So, but we've got all these airplanes that are sitting on the ground, everybody's in quarantine, nobody's flying anywhere. And it was scary. And the leadership team kind of rallied around together and said, hey, we came up with this mantra that we're not only going to survive, but we're going to thrive. And so the goal was to thrive through COVID. And thank God that we did, because soon as people came out of it, it went from our planes not flying at all to now through COVID, the whole industry has changed. There's so many new flyers that I believe had the means to fly before COVID, but they just didn't justify it. And then here COVID comes, and it's like, you know what? I have the means. I've worked hard. I'm not going to go to Delta, stand in line and be with the masses and with 300 other people in the airplane. And so it's been an incredible spike and a great run for us. But man, it was scary for a little bit.
And what do you wish people knew about fractional travel, or traveling through private, that they don't know?
Good question. I think people will be surprised how often these private jets are used as business tools to actually scale businesses and give the executive team and the entrepreneurs more time back. The time is the one thing that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. But for the people that are growing their companies and that need to be in multiple cities, there's not a better way to do it. So I think I think a lot of people look at the PJ lifestyle, and it's the celebrities and it's the people that they think that they're just taking their pictures on Instagram or whatnot. But about 70% of our flights, these are business tools, and we have the executive team in the back of the aircraft. They're briefing, they're meeting, they're in a private cabin as we're taking them to 2 or 3 cities in one day and having them home for dinner. So I guess that would probably be the biggest thing, is people really use these airplanes as business tools to help them scale their businesses.
Well, love what you guys are doing. Never flown private myself. I do have clients
Got to change that.
You'll do never every once in a while. I do want to ask you, Cory, we've done some research on the company. You're on here because of your leadership skills, the way you've developed your team and the culture you have. What do you think has been the most important piece of that, or principle of leadership that has kept your team growing no matter what?
I think it would be a couple of things, but number one, and when I say this, we're far from perfect. I'm far from perfect. We're always growing and making mistakes and stumbling, and we're always trying to recover from that and put a process in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. But I would say, Gene, if you asked me 3 years ago, what are our core values, our company core values, I had a card in my pocket and I would say, well, let me tell you. And actually, let me back up. I'll tell you a story. So I was interviewing one of our clients. Well, I say it was an interview. I was trying to sell him into our fractional program. And I'm in LA. We're sitting in the FBO. He didn't even want to look at the airplane. He's like, Cory, I want to know who you are. I want to know about your company, because I'm trusting my family with you, I'm trusting my business with you, and my money with you. So the airplane, I'm sure that's great, but let's talk about you. So he asked me what my core values were on the company. And I pulled out my little cardboard deal, and he's like, nope, stop. He's like, you're the CEO and founder of this company, Cory, and you can't even tell me your core values. And if they're more than 4 or 5, they're full of shit. But like, they're not real core values. And that, like, it really hit me. And I was like, you know what? He's 100% right. And I joke about it that was like the hardest interview I went through. It was like I was going into Mike Tyson, and halfway through, he's like, Cory, do you even want to continue this conversation? I told him, I want to. Like, I am learning so much, and I'm actually looking at my business. And he owns many different businesses and ultra successful. But I walked out of that meeting and I was like, you know what? I've got to make some changes here, because, they're written on my wall and they're in my wallet. But if I don't have all 10 memorized, and it's hard to memorize 10 and expect everybody else to. So coming back from that, Gene, we sat down with our leadership team and we're like, we want 4, no more than 5 core values. We want them what we really are. And we want to use it in our wording to our employees, in our messaging, in our marketing. And we want to catch people saying it and tell them good job for saying it. And so I wouldn't say every one of our employees has all 4 memorized, but I'd be willing to bet about 80% of our employees have all 4 core values memorized, and we talk about them. When there's a problem, one of them is solutions focused. So it's like, okay, we're not going to sit and complain about the problem. What's the solution? Let's be solutions focused. And so when we got that alignment of, a few things of who we are, that really helped a bunch.
What you're describing, Cory, is there's a difference between knowing your values and having them, and truly living them. And you weren't living them, and now you are.
Yeah.
I told you I was writing a book about tough conversations, which will be coming out here soon. I thought my next book would be about values, but that wasn't the plan for today. I left it up to you to kind of talk about what drives your company forward. In a sentence or two, how would you describe the value of 80% of the people really knowing the values of the company, and what that means for your growth of the company?
I think it's it's so important. It's just massive. For our values, that's when we do annual reviews with our employees. This is how we grade our employees. And it's like one of our values is deliver the wow. So we say, do we believe this person is delivering the wow? Almost all the time, sometimes, or not very often, it's a plus, minus, or minus rating system. And so we sit down and we talk to them, delivering the wow. Are you solutions focused? Are you fueled by passion? And the last one is team alignment. We just changed that one. We can talk about that too. But I think that the most important thing, it's like a sports team or anything. If you have everybody in alignment, if you have everybody singing from the same sheet of music and marching in the right direction, I use the analogy like all the arrows shooting in the right direction. That's how you can move very quickly. That's how you can break goals and make things happen. But if you've got one department going one way, another department going the other way, and they're all saying different stuff, you're never going to move forward quickly.
Well said. I hear a lot of different reasons for having the values, and I hear the stories of people that said, oh, I wish we had that, but they don't make a commitment to it. If we were looking at meetings, or we were looking across the way you guys gather together and work together, what would we see as it relates to core values and alignment?
Well, we actually, so the team alignment, we just changed that core value this year. It used to be team first. And the beginning of this year, I saw that we were having massive challenges, not so much from our leadership team, because our leadership team is very tight, but we meet once a week. We're always communicating, but then we've got about 17 second tier managers, the directors and vice presidents. And there just wasn't that gelling. Everybody kind of had their own agenda or their way that they thought that things needed to get done. And so we decided, all right, let's look at that core value, because team first doesn't really, how do you explain that? And everybody answered it a different way too. And so we changed it to team alignment and felt like that was much more clear and much more what we're looking for. It's like, we want all of our managers, all the employees, but specifically the mid-tier managers, where we're having the challenges of just to be in alignment, to see the bigger goal. And I think from the CEO visionary seat that I sit in, that is probably the most important thing, is to be able to clearly explain what that goal is. And if everybody knows where we're trying to go, and here's our values of what we need to do to be able to get there, then everybody, again, is those arrows are pointing in the same direction. So Gina, I don't know if I answered your question specifically.
Now, Cory and I have been talking about core values. There's no secret that I love the organizations that realize the importance of core values and live by them, but too often people don't. In fact, there's 12 different touch points, all the way from hiring to exiting and all the things in between, that you can use to make sure you're living the core values. One of my favorites and easiest is inside of meetings. So we have meetings all the time. What if you took 3 minutes inside meetings and you did a shout out? You recognize someone that's in alignment with the values. They can be in the meeting, they can be outside the meeting, but you're sharing with others what's expected in a small story format. Maybe it's 3 sentences. Challenge yourself not to make this go on and on, but to be really clear and powerful with 3 sentences, shouting out, giving recognition to people that are in alignment with the values. That's one way to live the values. And there's many, many more. If I can help you in any way, if I can give you the list, I absolutely have it ready for you. Just have to ask for it. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today, and I'll provide it for you for free. Now back to Cory. You gave me a good answer for this, and I want to switch gears because I think we've spent a lot of time on core values, and hopefully everyone listening in, this isn't the first time you've heard it, but hopefully it landed differently in a way that you're like, okay, maybe we could do a better job with this. That we have them, because that's what I heard from you. It's like, hey, we can live this. We can do a better job with these things so that they truly are a part of how we work together. The other thing that came out of our research with your company is team building. And I know we just talked about team first and whatnot, but is team building something you feel plays an important piece of you guys hitting the Inc. list 3 times over the last 3 years?
I absolutely do. And I think we, again, could do a better job than we have been doing. But we definitely try, each of our different departments has their weekly meetings. And then we have an all manager meeting twice a year. And we've started incorporating in that all manager meeting some sort of activity outside of just being in the meeting. So like the last one, we had everybody come to Utah, and we went up to our lake, and we went boating and surfing, and just got everybody to not be talking about work so much, but get to know each other on a more personal level and build those bonds of that team building and having that trust. And that's where, before we started doing that, and again, before we changed that core value, was like everybody was kind of pointing the finger of, well, that person didn't do this, or this person did this, versus, hey, let's not worry about whose fault it is. We've got this bond through this team building that let's figure out the problem. Let's be solutions focused, and let's all move forward together and get it fixed.
I was watching a video a little bit about the pointing the finger, and that's I think one of my biggest pet peeves in life is people blaming others.
Yeah.
It's probably there most of the time, and there probably is a reason why we're not in alignment together. But when you find an employee that's pointing the finger at someone else, how do you handle that as a leader?
It's a good question. I think asking really good questions and to try and get down to the bottom of that. But, we use the saying a lot, like peeling back the layers of the onion, right? Like, or is it the towel on the floor? We're really arguing about the towel on the floor. Is there a deeper issue that's really causing this? And so when someone is pointing the finger, some of the questions you can ask, be like, yeah, I completely understand that they could have dropped the ball. Is there anything that you could have done that was in your sphere of control that could have maybe helped out? Maybe it wasn't your requirement, but as a team, working as a team that is aligned, like, what else could you have done to make sure that what you had control over, that you could have done to help out?
Now, Cory's just talking about asking questions, and I agree. Asking questions is extremely important when you find someone is blaming someone else. But here's my favorite question to ask. You listen to who they're blaming, take it all in, and you can even agree with them. Yep, I get how you see that. But let me ask you a question. As hard as it is to take, how did you contribute to it? What you're looking for them to say is, you know what, I wasn't clear enough. I didn't set the expectations. I didn't do it consistently enough. I didn't do it, 4 times instead of just, 3 times. You want them to take a sense of ownership. How did they contribute to it? I love that question. I use it in my coaching quite often. I give it to you because it's so powerful. I want you to be the leader that your people deserve. Use that question. I'll repeat it again. When they're blaming someone else, give them space, but then ask them, how did you contribute to the situation? And listen to that as well. Back to Cory. I love the fact that you go back to questions. It's probably the coach in me that says that questions are the powerful way to move forward. When you tell someone something, the statement, the sentence that's declarative, there's no real ownership of that. But the question allows them to reflect internally, and it really is a powerful way to lead. Cory, we've been talking about team building. We've been talking about core values. Is there anything else that you feel like is it part of your growth strategy as a leader and as a culture?
Well, it's always about finding the right people, putting them on the bus and put them in the right seat. And my entrepreneurial journey's been awesome. And there's been times, again, like I was saying, through COVID, where we didn't know we were going to make it. And even before that, times I didn't know how we're going to make payroll. And it's just, I think that as an entrepreneur, you got to have faith in yourself that you're going to figure it out, that you're going to figure it out. And a lot of times by figuring it out is to put in the people on the bus that are better than you at certain things. I brought in a partner to my company 3 years ago, and he's one of the smartest humans that I know. And he's got that financial and operations mindset that has allowed me to fit more in my zone of genius, where I love to be out selling and creating new ideas and creating new programs and helping the sales team. And so really focus on finding people that are better at you're at the parts that you're not really good at, and allow yourself to work in your zone of genius. And if you can delegate as much of that other stuff that's the low impact areas, the better. Keep you in your high impact areas.
Cory, I want to ask you this. We all grow as leaders. There's always inflection points that tend to come up. Is there a time when your leadership had to grow or expand, or an inflection point that you would say you think differently about leadership than you do today?
I would say it was probably about 7 years ago, Gene, when at that point in time, maybe 6-7 years ago, the business was more of a lifestyle business. We really only did aircraft brokering, and we owned an FBO, but I was working hard enough to put money in the bank and to put some fuel in the airplane and let me go play and do whatever. And then I realized that there was this opportunity. I wanted to take this from just a lifestyle business to just a company of significance and be able to help a lot of people. I really truly believe we help a lot of very successful entrepreneurs grow their business and spend more time with their family. And also, I believe we create a really good place for people to work. And so it was kind of a mind shift that, like, hey, you know what? We're onto something. And if I still want to have fun, like it's part of my DNA. I'm always going to have fun. But if I really get focused and find the right people, get them on the bus, and create massive value for our clients, like this business can turn into something really, really cool. And I feel like we're just out of the starting gate. We're just getting going. Even though we've hit Inc. for the last 3 years, we're just finally getting the right people on to take it to the next level.
Well, Cory, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on leadership today with Growth Think Tank, and really do agree that most people think that they're living by their core values, but they're really just scratching the surface, and they just haven't really committed to living them. You talked about the reviews that you're doing and how you're coaching people through these values. It really is kind of in alignment with many other founders that have been on this show before. So you're in good company. You're heading in the right direction. I appreciate your being here and sharing your wisdom.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me, Gene.
Love the interview here. We talked about recasting company values, and these recasting of the values is a process that a lot of people need to go through. They have values and they're not living by them, and they need to look at them again, and they have a bigger team, and they have some new people that are added, and some things just aren't in alignment. If that's you, then this is a great episode for you. If there's anything I can help you with, because this is one of the tools that we use all the time. I've got some documents I can share with you. I've got a process I can give you. All you have to do is raise your hand. I will absolutely help you with this. Also mentioning that leadership effectiveness evaluation. If this is something you're curious about, reach out to us at genehammett.com and schedule your call today. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.